It's already time to have a look at this year's bingo cards and get our first idea of the state of play. It's only just turned April, but since we made these predictions oh so confidently, we've had 2 weeks of winter testing and 2 whole race weekends. And wow, do you learn a lot in such a short space of time. It's amazing how quickly our ideas about how the season will play out seem so naive, ignorant, or just plain foolish. So let's dive in, shall we? First, let's look at the squares that we can definitely tick off or discount. And we're going to try and take these in chronological order, as ideally, the first person to get a line will win. So, first up, I immediately get a losing square as Williams did not launch with a red and white livery. Though the livery does feature some red and white parts, you'd have to say it's still a blue and white livery. And it's by far my least favourite design of 2019 cars, and now it's cost me a bingo square as well, so thanks Williams. It's kind of annoying as it's also blanked out a horizontal, vertical and diagonal line, so I'll be gutted when George Russell inevitably outscores Lando Norris. Hazel gets her first successful square with Red Bull having a special launch livery. Red Bull first showed us its 2019 model in a funky geometric skin, but changed the livery back to a more conventional one before testing, which fulfills the criteria laid out by Sean. And if Hazel wants to get a line with this square, the horizontal one is a better bet right now than the vertical, with the Dutch Grand Prix not looking super likely for next year. Next up, a win for Sean after Haas once again botched a pit stop in Australia. Grosjean's pit stop resulted in a badly fitted left front tyre which eventually detached and caused the Frenchman to retire. Despite Grosjean being able to run for 13 laps before disaster, the prediction pit stop wheelie disaster has been fulfilled. This is a nice corner square for Sean, with a lot of opportunities for lines here. His horizontal though requires amazing wins from both Nico Hülkenberg and Pierre Gasly, so while Hülkenberg's Renault doesn't quite look there yet, stranger things have happened. Meanwhile, Pierre is having a tough start to the season, though could well have the car under him to take a sneaky win further down the season. Back to Hazel's board then, this time it's for a loss. Hazel's own prediction let her down in the cruelest of ways. She foresaw a first time winner in Bahrain, and we were so close to seeing that happen. Sure, Charles Leclerc was upset at losing the win, but that's nothing compared to having an F1 bingo square so tantalisingly close only to be whipped away at the last minute. It's not the worst square to lose though, as it does run through a tricky horizontal line. We'll come to see if this loss comes back to bite her later. Similarly, the results in Bahrain were a kick in the shin to Jonty, who lost the square. Lando Norris scores in his 5th race. To win this square, Jonty needed Lando to remain on 0 points until Spain, but an excellent drive to 6th place at Sakir gave Jonty 8 reasons to curse this rookie's fine form. This knocks out one of Jonty's diagonals, which arguably was looking very tricky anyway. His vertical though was one of the better ones and he'll be gutted to have lost it. So those are all the definite squares so far. If we don't get any lines by the season end, we will just go on total squares 1, so that's Sean and Hazel with 1 apiece. Let's have a quick look around the boards though based on what we know so far, starting with my board. Hamilton's looking pretty okay at the moment for title number 6, but what with being beaten in Australia by Bottas, albeit with some damage, and the Ferrari showing they can bring a lot of pace in Bahrain and winter testing, this title is far from certain. We really have to see if Ferrari are going to keep throwing points away and if Sebastian can actually bring it this year. He's definitely not at full Vettel. Though I'm starting to wonder if that moustache is the giveaway that he's actually Sebastian Vettel's evil twin, Hans Vettel, who's slightly worse at driving. Honda is looking okay at the moment, so predictions based around their inevitable failure like this one are looking a little bit dodgy right now, but let's see what happens when Toro Rosso are used as guinea pigs to test new upgrades. When it comes to driver changes at Toro Rosso or Red Bull, I think we were sort of looking at Kvyat's eventual dismissal, but man, Gasly really needs to watch his back. I know that the car's probably trickier than Verstappen's making it look, but we know Red Bull really like to paint a target on their drivers' backs, so that's something to be wary of, rightly or wrongly, right now. We really don't have to worry about this square, do we? You know, unless Williams discovers something magical at some point, this square is as good as dead really, isn't it? Thanks a bunch, Hazel. Now glancing at Sean's board, a lot of people have messaged me about the sponsorship square here. Australia came down hard on Philip Morris and the British American Tobacco for trying to sneak some subversive sponsorship onto the Ferrari and McLaren cars respectively. Now while they weren't strictly tobacco logos, Australia weren't having it, and it's become a little bit of a legal mess, leading to the withdrawal of those logos for that Grand Prix. Is this an investigation into fraud? My gut reaction is no for now. But when I do a catch-up video with the others later on in the season, we can debate this square properly, and I'm going to flag this for later, because I'm sure Sean will have things to say here in its defence. Charles Leclerc did not win in Bahrain, but if he keeps up this level of performance, and if Ferrari can bring it consistently, he could win 7 races. It's a shame for Sean that Charles lost this opportunity really, because if he wins 6 races this year, well, yeah, that'll be quite hilarious really, and I'll definitely be laughing come the end of the season. There are still 5 drivers left to score a point so far, including both Williams drivers. And Williams are so far behind, it's going to take a miracle for both of them to both score points, let alone 5 each. This square is looking very, very dodgy for Sean. And could Lando Norris get on the podium? Maybe. Again, it will take a little twist of fortune, but you just need things to get a little bit crazy, like Vettel spinning of his own accord, or for Leclerc to have engine problems and suddenly podium positions start opening up to the midfield. Jonty's board now. Whether or not Honda have a party mode remains to be seen. They'll have to have a little dig into that and maybe a little bit of debate needed. The new C1 to C5 tyre system actually seems to be doing okay at the moment. It's a little bit quiet, which is always a good sign. There's not been too much confusion, though testing proved a little bit complicated. Once the races started, however, we seem to have got on with it just fine. The only thing I personally have found a little bit annoying about the new system is the soft, medium and hard colour scheme is one removed from the old system we had for the last 8 years. When someone says soft, I think yellow, but now I have to think red, and it's taking a while to rejiggle my brain parts into accepting that. Can Leclerc beat Vettel in the standings? Signs point to yes, it's very possible. It'll still be very hard, but it's clear that Charles is bringing it to Seb harder than Pierre is bringing it to Max at the moment, for example. Game on for this square. Bottas's seat is looking less precarious than it did. His weekend overall in Australia was pretty awesome, though in Bahrain he had kind of faded a little. It's too early to say what kind of consistency Bottas will bring this year, but with Ocon in the wings and Russell testing for Mercedes post Bahrain, we know there's a big queue of talent waiting, should Bottas waver. Red Bull don't seem quite ready to win races yet, but Verstappen is clearly there, ready to take advantage of any situation. A late safety car, a change in the weather, any instance of unreliability to the front runners, and Max could clean up. We've also got Monaco, Hungary and Mexico as prime spots for Red Bull to take the lead here, so this square still looks pretty reasonable. And finally over to Hazel's board. Alfa Romeo are currently 4th in the standings, and Kimi, so far, looks good to keep bringing home the points. He's very much just hanging out at the periphery of the top 3 teams, mopping up what's left. And once Giovinazzi gets a little more into the groove, that could prove excellent for the old Sauber team. Verstappen beating Gasly in the championship looks very much a sure thing now, doesn't it? Gasly just isn't there yet, is he? But I'd definitely like to see him get on top of things soon and start to get a little bit more on par with his teammate. I do hope Red Bull can support him through that. Charles Leclerc wouldn't have headed the championship had he won in Bahrain, but he would have been a lot closer. In fact, he would have been 2nd behind Bottas, with the potential to maybe take the lead in China should Ferrari look good there. As it stands, the route to the top is a little bit more tricky for him now, but not impossible, especially if he does get those 7 wins. So that's my brief look at the boards after Bahrain. Do get in touch if you have any strong opinions about any squares that need ticking or failing at any point during the season. There are 64 of them to keep track of, so it is useful to have your input. And I know from messages I get to Twitter particularly that you guys are very much keeping an eye on these boards. Also, a very cool thing if you don't know already, if you go to f1.bingo, a guy named Peter Fox has made a website that will generate your very own 4x4 grid from our 64 predictions. And you can join leagues and compete with other people and be the first to cross off your squares. So if you fancy that, do go over there and sign up if you want to play along. Sean, Jonty, Hazel and I think all of us have got leagues over there, so if you want to join any of our leagues or cast allegiances to any of us, we'd appreciate that too. It's an unofficial website, but Peter's done a really great job of it, so yeah, do go over there if you want to make your own bingo board. And I'll be back with another update in a few races time. Let's just let things develop a little. And then in the summer break, I'll get all 4 of us back here to discuss the state of the boards and how they think the season is swinging. Thanks for watching. Do come back next week for a surprise new series.